All right, hey, thanks for being here. I probably should clean up my workspace here because I don't think I'm going to be coming back to these. But we are now on section 11.2. This one gave me a fair bit of fits as I was working through the stat crunch stuff of things. It's all about matched pairs, which we talked about in section 11.1, the previous video, so you understand what the matched pairs are. But what we're doing with the matched pairs, we're not looking at this sample. We're not looking at this set of hotel prices. And we're not looking at this set of hotel prices. What we're looking at is the difference between the two matched pair hotel prices, which means it's not two samples. It's kind of like one sample of cities. What is the difference between those two in each particular city? Which means, from one perspective, it's almost like a one sample test, not a two sample. Which means if you're going through StatCrunch doing this with two sample, because it looks like a two sample, you're going to get some wrong answers. So make sure you treat this as a one sample test. So there are some conditions for it. That's some stuff. You can feel free to pause it, read it, and then start the video back up. Let's do not Holiday Inn versus Red Roof, but Hampton Inn versus La Quinta Inn hotels for a random sample of 10 cities. Test the claim that Hampton are priced differently than La Quinta hotels at the 5% level of significance. So here is the data right here, and what you need to do is find the difference. And does it make sense that we're going to call this one City 1 and this one City 2? That just makes sense, right? So it would make sense then that we subtract this minus this. Now you can do that by hand, or you can have StatCrunch do it for you, and I'll show you how that works in a moment. We've got now 4 tests, right? Chapters 10, chapter 11.1, this is now 11.2. It's a matched pair t-test. This is a two-tailed because the researchers just want to know if they're priced differently. Doesn't know if one is greater than the other. They certainly are different, right? Looks like there's a whole lot more hundreds on the Hampton Inn side than the La Quinta side, but maybe they're the same. I don't know. That's what the researcher wanted to find out. So it is a two-tailed test. And we're going to set this up as the difference in their average price. The difference is going to be Hampton minus La Quinta. And what do we expect, kind of back to the previous show, if there's no difference between the prices, then what would we expect the mean difference to be? Well, we'd expect it to be 0. This right here, the alternative hypothesis, is that the difference is not 0 because we expect there is a difference between them. If there was no difference, then no difference is 0. If there is a difference, then it's not 0, right? We've got our this right here, and now because this is a t-test, we know it's t. I guess I didn't talk about that earlier. We know it's t, not z, because the sample sizes are very small, and we don't know the population standard deviation. And if we don't know the population standard deviation and the samples are small, then we've got to use a t-test. This is a 5% level of significance. It's two-tailed, so we take the 5%, cut it in half, 2.5, and 2.5, because let's see, what was our degrees of freedom? Oh, there were 10, right? There were 10 cities. So I've got to look at my chart in the 2.5% column at the level of significance of 9, degrees of freedom of 9, and make sure that I get 2.626, and I do. I thought for a minute maybe I forgot to subtract one, but I didn't. Phew. So that is the correct. Those are the correct critical values. Those are the fences. We're going to see if our test statistic is within that or not. So to do the t-test correctly, we realize we're testing the difference. So in StatCrunch, create an additional column to hold them. Now, a lot of times when you open up the StatCrunch thing, you might get something like this, and they'll probably be named, maybe Hampton, and maybe this is La Quinta. Now, this column right here, this is where we want to put the difference. So I'm going to select this column header right here, and I'm going to do some data with this. And I'm going to compute, and I'm going to write an expression. And I'm going to build, you might want to rewind this a couple times, or pause it. I'm going to build, and I'm going to build, double-click Hampton minus, double-click La Quinta, and hit OK, and then compute. And that will build me this difference column right here. And this column is the only column I'm going to use in my computation. Okay? And this is now going to be a z-test. So T1 sample with data. And what column am I going to use? I'm going to use the Hampton La Quinta with a hypothesis test. And at this point, I'm going to go right back so I can stand up. I get this. I've got that chart right there that I built for you. And this is a one sample T. I've got that with my hypothesis test not equal to 0. Make sure that this is selected correctly, which is why I like to draw it to make sure that I have both tails in place. You have either the summary statistics or you have the graph along with the summary statistics up there. Notice the degrees of freedom is 9, so we computed that correctly, and our t-stat and our probability is given. Is this easier to focus on? Yes, it is. This p-value of more than 6%, our cutoff was 5%. This is going to be an okay thing. Make note of those. I didn't make the highlight big enough. I'm so sorry. I'll fix that before I upload it. And it's inside the boundary. The p-value is greater than alpha, so we're going to fail to reject. What does that seem to say? It seems to be true that there is insufficient evidence to suggest that Hampton Inn hotels are priced differently than La Quinta Inn hotels. Sweet, that seems to be the case. Hey, guess what we could probably do with this? We could probably construct a confidence interval with this as well, right? So construct a 95% confidence interval. We still do the same thing, just in that same window, we're going to select confidence interval instead. And when I do that, I see that not by much, but this goes from negative 0.6 up to 14.6. Is 0 in there? Yes, it is. Does that mean that Hampton Inn is really close to being priced higher than La Quinta Inn? Maybe it is, but you're not going to be guaranteed to find that. Statistically speaking, it is the same. All right. So that wasn't that bad. I think maybe I can continue. No, I'll just stop it. I'll stop it. That way we can have a quick video for each of them. I'm going through these fast. I hope that you're okay with that. That's why the pause button, I guess, is great. Come back for section 11.3.